Jehovah's Witnesses have been fighting to keep their tax-exempt status in Norway, and they have lied under oath repeatedly. This has been an ongoing case for a few years now. They're going to reach a verdict in a few weeks. Avoidjw.org is an excellent resource. I will leave a link in the bio so you can see day-to-day coverage. Bottom line, here are the top 5 lies that JW.org told in court. Lie number 1, we don't, quote, shun like our critics say. The reason that Jehovah's Witnesses are fighting to keep their tax-exempt status as a religious organization in Norway in the first place is because they have a history of shunning ex-members, including minors who were kicked out of their congregations and shunned and ostracized. They've been doing this for decades. In case you're tuning in for the first time, you're new to this channel, I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses for 30 years. I left 8 years ago and never saw my family again. Okay, so this is real. They shun. But something you got to learn about Jehovah's Witnesses, if you haven't already, is that they use something, whenever they're in court, they use something called, quote, theocratic warfare. It's similar to Scientology when Scientologists use fair game. Jehovah's Witnesses are not that extreme, but they will lie through their teeth to keep their cash. But theocratic warfare means that lying is totally justified in court if it means protecting Jehovah's people. So, they're total hypocrites. So part of this theocratic warfare is that they're lying and saying that they haven't violated Norway's democratic standards. They got their government subsidies yanked in 2024. They went to the appeals court and won because the judge was completely ignorant and made a foolish decision. But Norway is pushing back. They're taking it all the way to the Supreme Court. And Watchtower is continuing to just lie through their teeth. That we don't shun people. That's just a smear against, why are you picking on the witnesses? That's just a smear, from our critics. The reality is Jehovah's Witnesses have their own judicial system. They have their own internal judicial process, okay? Their own law. This is outlined in an extremely detailed private leadership manual known as the Shepherd the Flock of God book, which means if you break one of their laws, one of their rules, you are punished. You are, quote, removed from the congregation. Now, for decades, this practice was called, quote, disfellowshipping, basically just excommunication. Okay, you're excommunicated from the congregation. Everyone has to treat you like you're dead. So basically, the way this whole thing started was that a bunch of adult survivors in Norway were saying that they were disfellowshipped as minors, completely screwed their head up, ruined their family relationships. So the Witnesses as an organization, as a corporation, got a lot of heat for this. And by the way, it's the same thing if you leave of your own volition. Like you disassociate. Maybe you don't even disassociate. You just leave and they decide, well, because you left, you changed your mind or whatever, we're going to punish you for leaving. So whether you're officially kicked out, excommunicated, removed, disfellowshipped, whatever word, whatever semantics you want to play, same outcome. You're still shunned. So of course, Jehovah's Witnesses are crying persecution. We should be able to practice our faith. You're just picking on us. You're infringing on our rights. And Norway's basically like, look, we don't care. We don't care that you believe in paradise and Jehovah or UFOs. We don't care about any of that. We care that you are violating a basic human right to change your beliefs and walk away without being threatened, coerced, or punished. Literally, under Article 19, Convention on the Rights of the Child, the only thing we're concerned about is that you are committing psychological violence against minors. You're indoctrinating them from birth, and they're afraid to leave. They're going to lose all support. Like, okay, you can remove someone's membership. They're no longer an official card-carrying member, but you can't tell people to cut off family members. That's the problem we have. You want all these protections. You are demanding all these protections as a religious group, but you can't even extend basic human decency. And that's clear by your policies and by the testimony of these survivors. And also, let me just say, if you don't shun, why are you here? What are we doing? So what happened was after the blow in Oslo, before they went to the appeals court, they ended up, out of the blue, Theocratic Warfare, printing this article. Yes, that article, where they tried to soften their position by suddenly removing the term disfellowshipped from their vocabulary. They introduced the word removed to basically make themselves sound less punitive. And so in this article, they're trying to explain their justification for the change in phrasing. Bottom line, the Bible says that we can technically give a simple, quote, simple greeting, to the heathen. So if someone's removed, see, we don't treat them like they're dead. See, there's a scriptural basis. We can at least say hi. See, we would never treat people like they're dead or shun them. That's such a lie, such an exaggeration. Then why the sudden change? Why haven't you been doing this the whole time? You guys, I'm not laughing because it's funny. I mean, I suppose you can find humor in life from really terrible things. There's so much to unpack here. My husband also did a whole series on the Norway case. Jehovah's Witnesses are like a Russian doll where it's like nested. I can't talk about one thing without it connecting to 6 other things. It's so layered. The craziness is so layered. So I'm going to do my best to break this down moving forward. We're going to circle back to this. I'm just here to give you Jehovah's Witness basics in the form of how they lied in court. Lie number 2, they don't monitor your behavior. So Watchtower's claiming that they don't monitor or investigate their parishioners' behavior. Total lie. Like I mentioned before, they have their own internal judicial system. So they have internal protocol, aka the secret elders manual, that does exactly that. The Shepherd the Flock of God book explicitly outlines and instructs elders on how to handle and investigate allegations of wrongdoing. Of course, they monitor the parishioners' behavior. Jehovah's Witnesses micromanage every aspect of your life. They police your sex life, who you can, or lack thereof, I should say, who you can date, okay? Your medical choices, who you can speak to, what you can wear, every aspect, your career, every aspect of your life is micromanaged. My take is, unless you pose a legitimate threat to people's safety in the congregation. Oh, you're a murderer? Oh, you're a registered sex offender? Yeah, get them out. Protect your congregation. Absolutely. Otherwise, you're talking about policing grown-ass adults. For example, I heard Mary Kay was boinking the pastor while the pastor's wife was on a work trip. Okay, so you're offended by Mary Kay. Yeah, okay, Mary Kay did a shitty thing. You don't have to be friends with Mary Kay. She doesn't have to be your friend. You guys don't have to talk. But when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you lose that right to act by your own conscience. Jehovah's Witnesses don't just express disapproval of XYZ. The leadership will enforce consequences against your will. Jehovah's Witnesses only put things like, oh, we're so flexible and reasonable and it's a conscience matter and you have free will. They say these things on paper because the court is watching them, the proverbial court, whatever country it's in. But again, I'll repeat myself, the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses is completely different. Let me give you an example. When you're in high school or middle school or whatever, you had the lunch table with all the popular kids. The school board didn't designate that table for Stacy and Chad and the cheerleaders and the football team or whatever. It's not like that table has their name written on it. But you knew not to sit at that table. That's the culture of your classmates or the student body. You understand the ecosystem, the school ecosystem, and that you know you're not welcome at that table, so to speak. Jehovah's Witnesses will try to make things sound nice on paper, that they're far more balanced and reasonable and hands-off than they actually are. But the reality is, you don't sit there. That's not your table. You're not welcome. You don't speak to that person. That person is removed or disfellowshipped. We all know. You don't talk to them. You don't make eye contact. You don't speak to them. They don't exist. They need to feel the burn. They need to feel the sting. They need to feel the guilt and the shame. That's what's going to make them come crawling back. Jehovah's Witnesses will literally cross the street. I wish I was exaggerating. They will cross the street and not make eye contact with you. And a lot of people, this is also something I got to say, a lot of people in the congregation don't agree with this behavior, but they know that their head will be on the chopping block if they're caught talking to you. So to say they don't monitor your behavior is a total joke. Kidding me? They live for it. Moving on. Lie number 3, your family won't shun you. I have not heard my parents' voice in 8 years. I don't say that for pity. There's people who've been shunned 15, 20, 30 years. So Watchtower wants to claim that family relationships continue as normal. Oh, somebody's removed, disfellowshipped or whatever, but that doesn't affect the family. Bullshit. When I disassociated, okay, that's when you formally revoke your membership in writing. So it's like an official letter of disassociation. Like, I don't want to be known as a Jehovah's Witness anymore. When I did that, I was dead overnight. And when I tried to explain to my parents that Jehovah's Witnesses' version of shunning and ostracism is unscriptural, they doubled down and fiercely protected the organization, not the relationship with their daughter. And again, I'm a drop in the bucket. There are people who were kicked out and shunned as minors, kicked out of their home, homeless as minors, literally living under bridges, living in their cars, having to go live with a classmate or a neighbor. Horrible stories. the person is cut off like a dead, diseased limb. And Watchtower lawyers were basically trying to say it's just they were watering down and diluting the severity of this punishment, the severity of the shunning, calling it, quote, social distancing. I don't know. For all intents and purposes, you are disowned. That's just their way of, it's semantics. It's their way of sanitizing it to make them sound less extreme. Now, if you get baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, if you become an official card-carrying member on their roster, all of this applies to you. But there's a loophole in the system. If you did not get baptized and you decide you want to leave, you don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness, your family will not shun you on a technicality. You could be living a life that's in total opposition to the Jehovah's Witnesses' way of life. You could completely offend their moral compass and everything they stand for and their beliefs and values, and they'll still sit down and share a meal with you. Two key problems with this logic. One, you are, again, indoctrinated from birth that the only way you're going to receive love and approval from your parents is to get baptized and be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You are pressured from birth. You are a minor. You are a dependent. You depend on your parents for food, shelter, clothing, love, material resources. It's entirely natural for minors to be intimidated and terrified of losing those resources, of doing anything that's going to jeopardize the things they need to survive. Because Jehovah's Witnesses want to act like, well, when you got baptized, you consented. You can't consent to a corporation as a minor. We don't give minors the keys to the car. We don't let them drive, drink, vote, get married. No major life decisions. You are pressuring minors to consent to something that they don't understand what they're consenting to, and then you're going to hold them to that decision for the rest of their life. This is child abuse. Okay, now two, you'll have some people who are like, well, I didn't get baptized, so I'm not shunned, like they got away with something. I can guarantee you with almost 100% certitude, what they're not telling you is that their parents were flakes. I don't care that their parents were flakes, but they had it easy at home. That's the part they're not telling you. Their parents were not hard asses. They were probably fringy, flaky witnesses, and I guarantee you in 2026, that whole family's out. And again, good for them. But their parents were not threatening them. So some people did have hardcore parents, and the kid put their foot down, had that resilience, and was like, no, absolutely not, I'm not getting baptized. And those were the kids that were living under a bridge. They were shunned anyway for being disobedient. Regardless of where you fall on the baptism spectrum, whether you were baptized and believed it, baptized, didn't really believe it, but you felt like you had to do it because you were pressured, or you never got baptized, or whatever it is, the question is this about principle or is this about rules? Okay, so you're not shunned. You found the loophole and now you have a relationship with your folks and you guys eat on Sunday together and you smoke, drink, fornicate, or whatever the thing is. You guys have totally opposite values, but your Jehovah's Witness mom and dad still talk to you. You guys have a relationship. I'm not even faulting you. It's by Watchtower logic. It's just stupid. By their standards, you should pose a threat. Do you see the absurdity and hypocrisy? On a technicality, they're not shunned. And like I said, there's people who never got baptized who are still shunned. They're still seen as a bad influence. That's how deeply ingrained shunning culture is in the Jehovah's Witnesses. Countless families have been destroyed by their shunning policy. Family relationships absolutely do not continue as normal. Lie number 4, we don't use fear tactics. This idea that Jehovah's Witnesses live in a constant state of fear, this is such an exaggeration. It's lies. Everyone's happy and they're of their own volition. Again, if that's the case, why do people fade? Fading, for anybody who's watching this for the first time or doesn't understand what I'm talking about, fading is a term that insiders use to slowly back away from the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. You wean yourself off in increments. If you just leave, obviously they'll be suspicious. But if you just slowly stop going to meetings, stop preaching, stop door knocking, you can fade. If you just stop cold turkey, they're probably going to hunt you down. They're always going to hunt you down regardless. You could have a really successful fade, and they'll still come a year or two later be like, oh, I think this person is trying to get away, the one that got away, and they're still going to come looking for you. When you're a Jehovah's Witness, you are on the grid. Again, of course, if you came from a family where everybody is on the same page and everyone's cool and you guys can all leave together and ride off into the sunset, fantastic. But most of the time, most people who leave face consequences. And one of these fear tactics, going back, is they have something called there's so many things I could talk about. I'm just going to stick to a few things. They have something called a publisher card. Okay, that's basically proof of your membership. So let's say you're a Jehovah's Witness and you're like, you know what, I just want to change congregations. Something happened in my congregation, I got in trouble or disfellowshipped, excommunicated or whatever, or something went down here. I want to move, start fresh, go to a different congregation. You can't. You're on the grid. You can go to that congregation and waiting at the front door, they're going to be like, hi, and what's your name? Oh, what congregation did you come from? Oh, okay, you're going to be moving in here. We're going to need your publisher card. And that publisher card contains damaging and sensitive information about your life that they can leverage against you. It's not just like hopping to a new church. You're going to go to that new congregation. They're going to basically ask you for your ID. It's like you got a chip. Okay, so you got that. Jehovah's Witnesses don't teach hellfire, but they teach Armageddon. Jehovah's going to destroy you at Armageddon. So they used to say, like, we don't preach hellfire. No loving God is going to torture you in hellfire. But they torture the living with this idea that they're going to, be killed at Judgment Day if they don't get baptized as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. So basically, they just replaced hellfire with their own flavor of fear-mongering. There's all types of rewards and punishments, again, with monitoring your behavior. Rewards and punishment, public humiliation rituals, more on that. They have a ton of fear tactics in their arsenal. Another huge lie. Lie number 5, minors aren't shunned. So apparently the lawyer for Watchtower said that the exclusion of minors is unthinkable. My brother was disfellowshipped at 16 years old, and we're 10 years apart. So I was 6 years old. My brother's 16. Imagine sometimes if you haven't experienced something, it's just very abstract. Imagine being in a church, a congregation, a room full of people, at least 100 people, mostly adults. And you got this 16-year-old kid, my brother, sitting on the back row looking like death. And I have to see people ignoring my brother. And I don't understand because I'm a little kid. What's happening? Why won't people speak to him? Psychological violence. It happened to my peers. When I'm growing up, my friend who's my age, 12, 13, getting disfellowshipped, nobody talking to them. They're ostracized. Parents talking amongst themselves like, ooh, so-and-so's child, so-and-so's daughter or son did. The f*** is wrong with you people? No wonder nobody likes you guys. These are kids. So another thing Jehovah's Witnesses do are marking talks. And a marking talk is, you screwed up, you're in trouble, you're either disfellowshipped, kicked out, or you're not, but you've been privately reproved. So you got to slap and you had to go to the back room, you got to slap on the wrist. The marking talk doesn't use your name. Imagine you have a friend that tries to get you to smoke pot. Imagine that you have a friend in the congregation who's giving BJs in the back of her car. Horrific, embarrassing, humiliating things regarding minors. And they package it in this really humiliating talk, but they don't use your name, but everybody knows who you're talking about. So instead of it being like, I screwed up, I messed up, I already feel bad, now you have to sit in front of the congregation or sit in the audience, and this is being said about you, and you can feel it. You can feel the heat and the sting and the shame. They're trying to make an example out of you. Part of the culture of the Jehovah's Witnesses that people don't know about. So when they took their case to the appeals court last year, or 2024. They took it to the appeals court. The appeals court is basically like, oh, you guys are just, this whole minors being shunned thing and excluded and treated like shit, you guys are blowing this way out of proportion. We're going to use our judgment here. We think you're blowing it out of proportion. They can make friends at school. What's the big deal? They can, just because they're not Jehovah's Witnesses or they're removed, doesn't mean they can't find a social circle outside of the Jehovah's Witnesses. They can find support. What's the big deal? They can find support out of the congregation. No. They can't. As someone who lived it and grew up in it, you are taught to avoid your classmates like the plague. You can only have Jehovah's Witness friends. Your whole life revolves around being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not like I'm a Jehovah's Witness and I'm a cheerleader, I'm a ballet dancer, I'm a football player, or whatever it is. That's not how it works. Being a Jehovah's Witness is your entire identity. Jehovah's Witnesses are extremely socially isolated. You may go to school with them, you may work with them, but it is a mental prison that they are trapped in. They have been conditioned. It has been seared into their skull to avoid you, the outsider, the worldly person. And thanks to the appeals court and their foolish decision, this is why Jehovah's Witnesses, that's a reflection of how the world at large, and I've said this before, how society at large mocks Jehovah's Witnesses, doesn't think anything of it. That's how they've been able to fly under the radar. Because people don't treat them with the same attention. They don't laser in like Jonestown or Nexium or some headline grabby cult. They just look like dorks in suits that knock on your door. They don't realize the severity and trauma that organization has inflicted on families for generations. Oh, Jehovah's Witnesses are harmless. No, they're not. I'm not saying they're evil. I'm talking about the individuals. I'm talking about the leadership at the top. No, they're harmless. They're so nice. Nice has nothing to do with it. When I think of the appeals court, it's like it reminds me of like a politician who likes to smile in a photo op. It's like, dude, don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. I don't care about your personality. I think you're full of shit. What are your policies? The appeals court made a huge mistake by looking at that smarmy grin of a con artist. The appeals court lacked the lived experience of a Jehovah's Witness. They don't have it in their bones, in their nervous system. They don't understand the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't know what it's like to be a traumatized minor in the Jehovah's Witnesses. They only see what's on paper. Basically, they bought the lie. And finally, to round this out, the irony of all this is the Shepherd the Flock of God book has a whole section about removing minors. And I will repeat this again, Jehovah's Witnesses, 99.99999% of them did not choose to be Jehovah's Witnesses. They were born into it. Oh, you came from a cult? Oh, Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. You were in a cult. I didn't choose this, bitch. So this is not a case of, you were disfellowshipped, you were removed. Oh, nothing to see here. Life goes on. Go make friends somewhere else. Just pick up your life and move on. This is just a case of sour grapes. No, this is not like walking away from just any church. You cannot leave the Jehovah's Witnesses without severe negative impact to your life if you came from a devout family. And also, let me make this clear. I'm not saying that people can't rise and overcome really difficult, shitty, challenging things in life. I'm going to build a life for myself, and I'm not going to be a forever victim. A lot of Watchtower survivors, including the ones in Norway, have gone on to live happy, healthy lives despite everything they've been through. But it always comes at great personal cost. I will leave more info for you to follow this case. It's just emotionally exhausting. They're up to their usual tricks. None of this is new. We don't care. You can believe in Jehovah and paradise and whatever you want. That's fine. Just don't psychologically terrorize and threaten minors. There you go, guys. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Spreads this information out more. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.